Here.
Division 6, Audrey Miller. Here. Division 5, Robert Harris. Division 4, Justin Lane.
Here.
Division 3, Frank Donato.
Oh, here.
Division 2, Keith Dias.
Here.
Division 1, Shelley Sorsical.
Here. Thank you, Madam Secretary. Item number 4, adoption of agenda.
I'll make a motion we adopt the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 5, public comment period. Is there anybody here that would like to address this time? Item number 6, new business. Item number 7, consent calendar.
I'll make a motion we approve the consent calendar.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 8. 8A1, Water Rates and Capacity Fees Committee. Jerry?
Yeah, Dwayne?
Yes.
I'll be happy, Madam President, and put this to the board. Tonight is the night that was designated for conducting a public hearing with regards to a rate increase for 2020. And it's at this time that you should open the public hearing, take comment. Staff will have a report as part of that public hearing process.
Okay, great. In the matter of the adoption of resolution number R-20-01, amending the rules and regulations for the distribution of water of the Antelope Valley East Kern Water Agency by amending section 12 effective January 1st, 2020. The purpose of this hearing is for the agency to consider adoption of a resolution amending the agency's rules and regulations for the distribution of water of Antelope Valley East Kern Water Agency by adopting the 2020 water rate. And I'll ask for any statements by the staff or consultants.
Yes, Assistant General Manager Knudsen will provide.
Good evening, members of the board. Included in your packet is a copy of a staff report that was prepared for this item, as well as the presentation that we're going to be giving this evening. Just a little bit of background on December 18th, we presented this to the Water Rates and Capacity Fees Committee. They are recommending the adoption of the resolution and what we're going to be presenting this evening. We also had a customer meeting we've invited all of our M&I and Ag customers. We met with them. We had several individuals attend that meeting. LA County representatives from LA County Waterworks, Quartz Hill Water District, and a couple of customers along the Leon Valley feeder. Included in a staff report is a summary of their comments, but one item, or a couple items were, one where they were happy to see the transparency that the agency was providing, the detail of the presentation, and the financial model and exercise that we have been going through. And the only other item of comment from the customers was related to the capital cost. So you'll see in the presentation that we are funding 100% of the capital plan over the next 5 years. Their recommendation is to spread that cost of the capital out over more than 5 years to soften the rate increase. But we'll get into that in the presentation. So as you know, we've hired Raftellus Financial Consultants. They've been doing this financial study and rate study for the agency for probably 4 or 5 years now. And it seems to be going well. We look out 5-year period, but we revisit this each year and take each individual year to adopt a new rate study or a new rate structure for the agency. So Mr. Charles Diamond is here from Raftellus. He was instrumental with Severe in developing this financial model with staff, and he developed a range of questions. So we'll get right into the presentation. We'll talk about some of the key assumptions that go into the financial model, the proposed financial plan, what the recommended rate structure looks like and proposed rates. And then we'll talk a little bit just briefly about alternative rate structures that we're going to evaluate at a future date. That's not part of this evening's action. and then open it up for Q&A. So some of the key assumptions are on growth rates, water account growth rate at 0%. So we're assuming, worst case, that no new accounts get added to the agency's service area and distribution system. Property tax rate growth at 2%. This is the maximum growth rate. And as you know, we have an independent consultant that comes in each year and does an evaluation of the projected tax revenue for the agency. It goes towards, a big part of that goes towards our fixed costs associated with the state water project. So that 2% is a good estimate. Miscellaneous growth rate at 0%. So we're being conservative there as well. Inflation factors, general and supplies at 3%. Personnel at 4%. This includes health coverage and cost of living adjustments for staff. And then utilities, which is not just the utilities that we pay directly to Edison, but this also includes water purchases and chemical costs is tied into utilities. And then capital projects, you can see down at the bottom, but we have a little bit more detail in the capital project component. So really these factors of inflation don't really apply.
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, so let's, the growth rate, you see water accounts growth rates. Define that.
So this would be new accounts. So let's say a large development came in and needed a new connection to from LA County Waterworks to our system to supply the needs of that development. We're assuming that there will be no new accounts added to the system.
Okay, of the ones that we already have planned for, basically?
Correct.
Okay.
Another list of some water operations and budget. So we are assuming the water purchases and sales flat at 50,000 acre feet per year over the next 5-year study period. That's a conservative estimate. If you remember in prior rate studies, we had a little bit more of aggressive increase in water sales and purchases from our customers. So we're seeing that trend is a little flatter. So this new rate model shows 50,000 acre feet over the next 5 years each year. Revenues and expenses for future years are based on the approved 2020 budget. So in July, we approved the 2020 or 2019, 2020 budget. All of the projections as far as revenues and expenses that's the baseline. So we use the approved budget as the baseline looking out over the next 5 years. Additional estimated costs associated with Delta Conveyance. This is a new item that we've added to the rate model. As you know, we are starting to talk about the Delta Conveyance project, and we really need to start planning for how we're going to fund that expense to the agency. So what we've plugged in the rate model is $3 million for the years 2020 through 2022 each year. And then for the last 2 years of the financial model, we've plugged in $5 million per year. And this goes towards the cost of participating in the Delta Conveyance project. Primarily our participation in the design of that project as well as the environmental work.
How much did we pay last year?
Nothing.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is a new line item in the rate model.
So Matt, this is actually a fixed cost at $3 million this year?
That's our best guess as to what it will be based on the information we have to date. This is not finalized by any means, but we want to make sure that it was plugged into the model so we're not having to pull these funds out of reserves and we're funding that from our customers.
How did we reach the $3 million mark?
Based on some preliminary estimates with the Delta Conveyance Authority and our participation of the share of the, or percentage of the total cost.
They're anticipating, I mean, there's even anticipation that in the next year or two, it could be 6 million.
I remember it was high.
Yeah. But as you know, the discussions are lagging, you know, so.
So that, okay, so,
In essence, what the agency is trying to accomplish is not to be caught flat-footed on a financial basis, assuming that there is some progression with regards to the project moving forward. So we have some money that is contained within the financial model in order to compensate for that.
Yeah, but the thing is the media needs to understand, I mean, this is serious. Because here you're telling us that you don't see any, the water sales assume level to 50,000 acre feet. Okay, let's take that. Now you're telling us there's an extra $3 million. Okay, on top of that, well, something's going up. Offset that $3 million. Of our water sales are stagnant. That $3 million is not just, you
It
know.
has to come from rates.
It's gotta come from something.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's why we're putting it into the rate model to determine the rate.
Yeah, I just wanted to make that. The other thing I want to bring up, and I'm cautious with this too, is that on the first item you said, the 5-year period, where I have a problem with that sentence is that we're starting our 4th year on the ramp down. So there's 2 more this year and then next year, then everybody's cut back anywhere from 40 to 60% of pumping groundwater. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so who's gonna monitor these people who don't feel comfortable because they have to now, every water agency is gonna be raising their water bills 200% maybe, what they're charging people now? I don't hear any discussion about that either, you know, especially that component is that the pumpers that are out there, which is the retailers, are going to have to cut back on their wells, and they're gonna have to use table A water, which is
Water, water.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just wondering about why you save 50,000 acre feet of water. I believe our water sales are gonna go up in 2 years as much as 75,000.
Yeah, that's what they were seeing based on the annual reports and things prepared by the water master. A lot of purveyors are carrying over and stacking up their production rights. So, you know, through this ramp down period, they're stacking up their import water return flows, their unused production rights, and they're banking on being able to pump those in the near future.
So what we anticipate is that we'll have a slower movement towards that complete ramp down because they will have built up some of these other supplies, which will require them to buy less.
And I see that happening, but what I do see happening too, if that's the case, the 40 to 70% cutback, if they start pumping that much more of that water to offset, hopefully the levels can handle it,
Yeah.
because it could possibly delay the 17 years lift on that 110,000 acre feet of water. And they're trying to get around, because basically what they're doing is they want to get around AVAC's rate. I mean, that's what it comes down to, I mean, basically. So that'll be interesting, that they're gonna have to deal with that, because if everybody starts pumping more, and with their, you know, what you're talking about, could be an interesting situation.
Yeah. But we think the 50,000 is a good estimate for the 5-year period. Obviously, we revisit this study each year.
Well, that
So
would
if
be
we're
a
seeing
minimum.
a tick up, we can adjust it each
Could
year.
there be less?
I don't see it being less. I think it's going to be pretty flat in the short term to what we're seeing today.
Well, we got some big real estate, some big developer projects that are in cooking right now,
Yeah.
heating up. And there's gonna be more, water, whether it's,
More demand.
it's one of the CV communities, or whether it's this one over here.
Ritter
CV
Ranch,
communities.
potentially.
And we don't know what's going on with Ritter Ranch, because they're now also reactivating that situation too, which is all gonna be coming from AVAX.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So those are some of the key assumptions. I mentioned the capital improvement plan. This is over the next 5 years. You see the years across the top, and then on the column on the left is a list of the major components. Maybe just a couple things to point out. In this capital improvement plan. Find it here. And hard time with the screen. There we go. Okay, so we got our asset replacement. This is miscellaneous asset replacement throughout the various treatment plants and distribution system. That's holding roughly $1.5 million per year, and we've seen that last couple of budget cycles. GAC replacement, as you know, we started replacing all of the GAC at the various treatment facilities. Last year it was Roseman treatment plant. This year we're tackling half of the filters at the Quartz Hill facility. And then next year will be the remaining portion of the Quartz Hill facility, and then most likely East Side Water Treatment Plant 2022. So that's a big financial capital cost. Another big one, if you look out into 2022 through 2024, down at the bottom, we have Smith Phase 2 construction. As you know, we're actively pursuing some federal grant funding for this project, roughly $26 million, and we all hope that that's successful. But we've gone ahead and plugged into this financial model the cost, the capital costs associated with that project. Obviously, if the federal funding comes through, next year's financial model will remove that $8.6 million for 3 years, roughly $26 million, out of the financial plan. That's a benefit to the agency and all of its customers, because we will have secured that funding that they won't have to fund in their water rates.
You know, I think it's indirect. A capital improvement plan is the tunnel. I mean, why isn't that plugged in that $3 million into that? Because we're collectively, state water contractors, building that pipeline.
Yeah, so what we've done, the capital improvement plan is really focused on one-time capital expense projects. We envision the Delta Conveyance project being a long-term financial commitment for the agency.
Forever.
Therefore, it's plugged in a different location within the financial model.
In essence, it'll be part of the BWR vote.
Yeah. So that's why you don't see it on this capital improvement plan.
Okay.
So I wanted to highlight some of the big ticket items on there, and you can see we're ranging anywhere from $9 million per year in fiscal year 2020, current budget, up to $14 million. This spikes in 2022. But again, if Smith Phase 2 funding comes through, that's a benefit for everybody.
When?
When does it come through?
It does
No,
go through.
I mean, she's,
Oh, when, yeah.
yeah.
So, any questions on the capital improvement plan? Okay, now getting into some of the graphs here. We got the proposed revenue rate adjustment, debt service coverage. So as you know, we have debt here for the agency. One key thing that we look at when recommending rate increases or rate adjustments is to ensure that we're staying in compliance with the bonding agencies for debt service coverage. So the blue bars, vertical bars, is the 7.5% over the next 5 years. The bottom purple line, horizontal line, is our minimum debt service coverage at 100%. The green line, if you can see that, also horizontal line, is the target coverage for the agency, 175%. Then the red line is our actual debt coverage. And you can see we want to make sure we're staying somewhere between that purple line and the green line, preferably closer to the green line. So as you can see, with the recommended rate adjustments over the next 5 years at 7.5%, with all of the assumptions that is built into the model, we're staying really close to that 175% target coverage. So that's really key for the agency. We got to make sure that we're staying within those bond coverages. The next item shows also shows 7.5% increase, and that is the proposed revenue, the red line. You can see that's slightly going up. We've got to make sure that that red line matches the vertical bars. And we've just broken down the vertical bars into the various expenses for the agency. So the green portion is our operating expenses. So that's water purchases, treatment costs, personnel is in there. The purple portion of the bar is non-operating expenses. That's primarily our fixed costs associated with the state water project. Then we've got our blue section, which is our rate-funded CIP. based on that previous couple slides back, we went through the capital improvement plan. That is the portion of our total budget that is rate funded capital improvement plan. And again, the last 3 years will obviously come down if when SNP phase 2 funding comes through. And then the orange section is our debt service coverage. So that's again another fixed component over the next 5 years. Those expenses, which it is shown, it's pretty close, as you can see. This is our reserve balance, cash reserves. The green bars is showing currently what our reserve balance is, a little over 100 million. The target balance is the red line. So all these assume 7.5% over the next 5 years. And as you can see, even looking out 5 years with the assumptions that we plug in, we will have met our target reserve balance at the end of 5 years. Again, this is taking into account the previous slide assumption, including the rate funded CIP. So, not to sound like a broken record, but the last 3 years we've greatly improved when the SNP phase 2 funding comes through.
The one thing that's going to help us is property taxes, because our appreciation is gradually picking up somewhere close to 8% a year now.
Yeah.
So that's really helpful.
How would it be affected if they repealed Prop 13?
Destroy the state.
No, I know that, but I mean, I'm talking, since we get property taxes.
Well, we would get our taxes, well, I don't know what's in the bill. The bill's been done, we're disguising it, but I don't know, I have no idea what's in it that, are they taking money away from special districts in that Prop 13? I don't know. I mean, if it's a standard repeal of 13, and they don't touch anything else, our taxes are gonna go through the roof. But you don't know, I mean, we're gonna get a lot of taxes, but it will.
Oh, yeah, I know, that's.
You really want to think
It
about it.
shouldn't hurt us, but as an agency.
Well, personally, it'll hurt everybody.
That's why I said as an agency.
Especially the elderly, I mean, seniors, people that own
No,
homes
that'd be
for
terrible.
30 years, you know? I mean, everybody's, well, I can't believe what it is. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. It won't create more jobs, it'll actually destroy jobs.
Oh, yeah, I'm totally aware of it.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's a great question, but we're not gonna know. I mean, it's on the ballot, so it's coming up and it's not even called, it's not gonna say cut and dry. They're trying to bury the agriculture industry. So we gotta.
All right, next slide is based on all those assumptions, and assuming a 7.5% rate adjustment for 2020. You see the far right column would be the proposed rates. Take effect immediately. You see on the left are the various rates that we have throughout the service area. A big portion of our revenue comes from treated M&I, which is currently $602 per acre foot, would go up to $648 per acre foot. And then I want to just bring your attention to the bottom, of course, is Acton service area. As you know, last year was the first year that we started treating the Acton service area, which is primarily water purchased by LA County Waterworks to serve Acton, as a different component due to our agreement that we have for treatment and delivery of that water. So that rate will go from $645 per acre foot to $694 per acre foot. And then some of the larger numbers that you see there are really special agreements that we have with Mojave Water Agency, as well as Edwards Air Force Base and Phillips Lab. Those only affect those agencies, or customers, I should say. And then just to remind you that Edwards still has a commitment to, as a take-or-pay contract, of 2,160 acre feet per year. So they pay for that quantity of water regardless of how much water they if there are no questions, just wanted to refer back to the staff report, which is on page 54 of your packet. And then attached to that on page 55 is the proposed resolution number R20-01, which both the staff and Water Rates and Capacity Fees Committee is recommending for you.
Okay, so this has nothing to do, you said something earlier about some people wanted to express something over 5 years, I don't know, beyond 5 years, what was that?
You were saying County Water Works wanted to have us.
Oh, okay, yeah, so in the staff report, when we had our customer meeting, every year when we present this to the board, we make sure we reach out to our customers and get their input on the recommendation that the committee's presented to the board. And one of the comments from our M&I customers was to look at let's go back to the capital list here. See how we're funding 100% of these estimated capital expenses throughout this 5-year period, and that's built into the rate model. Their recommendation and request was, rather than fund it all within 5 years, spread that cost out over 10, 15 years.
But that's not how we do things.
No, that's not
That's how they do it, that's why they're broke.
Or they'll go out
We
and
don't do
borrow
that.
on that. And
Yeah, we don't do that.
I think at the end of the day, it's the same way. I mean, we're saving on borrowing, the cost of borrowing money to do that. We're paying as we go for these large capital expenses. So we just want to make sure we brought that comment to the board as part of the.
We're not changing.
Okay, that's fine. I mean.
No,
that's-
because, no, I'm happy, if they want to take part of the $3 million that we don't want with the state water project, they can take on that and spread it over 15 years. You know, I mean, these costs we're inheriting these costs. It isn't like something we created, or mismanaged the agency. We're being handed $3 million a year because they just say we have to take it.
Yeah.
And I see these rates, like you said, our rates, 628. The way this thing's going in 5 years, it's gonna be over $1,000 with the state water project.
Yeah, if we stay on the path of.
I mean, you're talking $15-20 million, we're gonna be hit. It's 3 million, just think 3, they're going higher in 5 years, that's 15 million.
We'll always be playing catch-up if we were to do something.
Yeah, so that's what
we're
we're
doing.
Yep.
Well, Matt, let me ask you this, how have we treated capital improvement expenses in the past regarding rate upwards?
As far as I know, unless somebody else knows otherwise, it's just how we presented it this evening.
Okay, thank you.
But we could look at, some of the infrastructure that we have currently in our debt service was associated with improvements that for the high desert water bank, the west side water bank, and those facilities were financed over a longer period of time, as opposed to utilizing all the cash that the agency had available, if you remember back then. So for the relatively modest amount of capital that we're talking about, this is pay-as-you-go is the appropriate way to go. If we have a project that's $100 million, it's going to last 50 years, then there's an appropriate time to spread that over all the customer base over that period of time.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I'll just pick an item, the GAC replacement. We wouldn't want to borrow to do that. That's an O&M capital expense. We wouldn't want to borrow on something like that. That's not going to have the life that.
Thank you for your presentation, that was very good. Do we have any statements by the Water Rates Committee or any other board members?
Yeah, I've got one question. How many farmers are using ag water?
We have very little to no ag use throughout the service area.
Why is that?
I can't speak on their behalf, but it probably has something to do with the cost of the water associated with the crop that they're growing and the expense associated with that.
We put water in Big Rock Creek?
In 2019, we put very little amount. It's just part of a pilot test that we've been recharging. Currently, there's still quite a bit of natural runoff from the St. Gabriel's, so it doesn't make sense for us to put any water in Big Rock right now. It just flows out too far to the north. Another thing that I should mention that I didn't as part of the presentation, nothing in this financial model includes the costs associated with this water bank.
Couldn't hear that.
Yeah, I couldn't hear you.
Yeah.
And none of the costs associated in, or that was plugged into this financial model includes the costs associated with the high desert water bank. As you know, that's
Oh, right.
completely
It's separate.
separate.
Yeah,
I just wanted to note
separate.
that's 100% funded from Metropolitan Water District. None of our customers are paying for that project.
Okay, thank you again. Next item, statements by the public. Is there anybody in the public who would like to address this issue? Okay. At this point, if there's no further discussion, I'll declare that this hearing is closed. Now I need a motion to approve Board Order 8A1.
I move we approve AB1.
Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 8B1. Finance Committee Director Donato, please.
Yes, Finance Committee met yesterday, and AB1 we're going to table. We need a little more information before we can bring a recommendation to the board. 8B2, we discussed this in lanes yesterday, and John Mozigan is going to give us, Operation Manager, will give us an overview of why we're going in this direction.
This is a replacement of some piping, backwash piping. A quartz treatment plant is 24-inch piping. Manifolds are backwash pumps together, and that brings the water into the plant so we can backwash our 24 filters. This piping is 40 years old. It was really not installed correctly originally, and we're getting a lot of leakage around where the pipe penetrates the concrete slab around the backwash pumps. We solicited a proposal from WM Lyles to do this work for us, complete, and they came in at about $74,000. As a staff, we got together and thought, maybe we could save some money and have our in-house welding department, which is the department one right now. Maybe we could have him do some of the work. So he constructed the manifold, he welded it all up, but we do need someone to excavate. It's a pretty deep excavation, and do the tie-in for us. So the numbers we have, Avek's costs to date are about $21,000. WM Lyles will come in for about $29,000 and do the excavation and the tie-in. So overall, we're going to save about $24,000 the way we did this. In the future, I was telling the committee that we will have an in-house maintenance department. We'll be able to do a lot of this work ourselves, but right now it's pretty critical to get it done. So with that, I don't want to go into too much detail, but with that, we're just asking to approve the expenditure for WM Lyles to do this tie-in for us.
Okay, I'll move on Board 8B2 to approve the WM Lyles Construction Company.
Second.
Any discussion?
Can you remember the amount that we're spending for, is that the 74?
The amount that the 74 was for WM Lyles to do the whole thing. So we did pay ourselves, they're going to do part, so we're going to come in about $24,000 less than that. We're coming in about 50K.
So the amount of the purchase order is $29,007.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Donato. Item number,
Go ahead.
Item number 9, old business.
Yes, Board President, with the Agua Valley Water Master, this is an informational item only, and once again, Assistant General Manager Dulce will provide the staff.
I can't hear what he's saying. Can somebody come up to the mic?
Good evening again. So if you recall, this item was requested by Director Paris at a previous board meeting. And the question, or the item came up because Roseman Community Services District applied for a storage agreement with the Antelope Valley Water Master to get groundwater credits for water percolated through their wastewater treatment plant into some percolation ponds into the groundwater basin. So full disclosure, I'm not totally familiar with the project, but I did reach out to Roseman Community Services District staff, got a presentation that I kind of trimmed down from them, and I know a little bit about the project just through our involvement with the Water Master. So it's just informational only, and be happy to answer any questions as we go.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Why aren't they here?
Well, this agency is not taking action on this project. It was an information item that,
I know, but still, they're the ones that requested it. Are they the ones?
no, they did not. Our board member requested this item be discussed with the full board, just as an information.
But it's pertaining to Roseman.
It is. But
So
there-
in their defense, why would they be invited to be here to hear what we're talking about them about?
they couldn't make it this evening, but
And also the person who requested is not here either.
correct. But, this board is not taking action on this item this evening. It's simply information item. So
Okay.
I'd be happy to go through the presentation and share with you what we know about the project. This is informational only, or we could table it if
We
you
I-
want.
could table it.
I like to table it. And I'll tell you why I like to table it. I don't want to put you as our assistant manager in a position speaking for Roseman Community Service District. It's not our place, okay? In all fairness to you and this agency. So I believe that anytime they want the floor, Roseman's more than welcome to come here and discuss what they have on their mind
And this
regarding.
wasn't their request. Again, their intent was not to present this to this board.
Well, and the person who a board of directors who requests something should be here to also not put you in this position.
Yeah. That would be good to table it. There's no urgency on this
Okay,
item, so we
okay.
could table it when that director is here, and I could reach out again to those and see if they'd be willing to come in.
Yes, maybe.
I
Coordinate
couldn't-
another
I
date.
I have a feeling we're
They
gonna
are
have a meeting here
available.
soon.
What's that?
I have a feeling we're gonna have another board meeting here not too soon.
In 2 weeks. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Item
you.
number 10, general manager's report.
Through this field. There. All right. Make sure I'm close enough to the microphone here. So this is General Manager's report for January 14th, 2020. You can see this is the area that is shaded to the right is the groundwater shed for the Orville Dam, which provides the source water for the state water project. Snow level is currently around 3,500 acre feet. We're looking at snow showers likely tonight with 1 to 3 inches of accumulation, heavy snow on Wednesday and Thursday. And we also looking at some snow through the weekend and some cold temperatures. So it's looking like a good snow weekend or week for us here in January. Just to talk about the snow levels, you can see here, these are our snow graphs. This is the northern, central, and southern section of the state and the Sierras. This is our level here. This blue line is what is average. So you can see we're in almost all indications very close to our average as far as snow level goes at this particular time of the year, which is a very good sign moving forward. This also is our precipitation outlook for the Northern Sierra Aid Station Index. Once again, the blue lines are associated with what is average. The yellow lines are actual. So if you start with the beginning of the water year in October, and you can see this is how we got through January. Thank goodness we had a very nice December. This snowfall will definitely help the January totals, and we're hoping for another storm or two. And as you can see, right about the end of March through April, our precipitation drops off very significantly. So the next 3 months are very important for the water supply for the next year. Once again, this is the same graph that we consistently use to judge where we are relative to average and whether we're having a good water year or a poor water year. You can see we're just a little bit below average. And January 2nd was the first snow survey that was done. They recorded 33.5 inches of snow depth and about 11 inches of actual water equivalents associated with that, which once again gets us right about 90% of average, which is a good snow survey. There has been years when they go out to do this in January and there's less than an inch, or hardly anything at all to measure. The current water condition in the state is relatively good. We're right about average. You can see this is the Lake Oroville. The red line is associated with the average water level. The blue is the actual. So you can see both in San Luis Reservoir and Lake Oroville. And Lake Oroville is the water that we are conserving and storing from that watershed that we talked about where all the snow and the water's falling. And the San Luis Reservoir is a south of the Delta off-site reservoir where once the water gets across the Delta, which is the most difficult aspect of our project, is where the water is stored, and that provides us reliability for water supply.
So right now, the way it looks right now, there's definitely spillover.
No, not necessarily. Could be.
No,
Could be.
We're only in middle of January, we got, unless it was completely dry for the next 60 days, you're correct, but normal snowfall. So are we preparing ourselves so we don't lose the water and we put that in a bank?
Yes. The short answer to your question is yes.
Okay.
And we've gone to DW, the State Water Contractors has a operations committee that looks at the projections, models, the amount of water that can flow through given the biological opinions. And it's interesting, we can flow less water when it's wet and the water's flowing through the delta than we can when it's dry. In the middle of summer, we can actually pump more water. So consequently, those analyses are done on a regular basis. And so the agency is planning to bank as much water as we possibly can during the early months of this year. So once again, here's where we're at today. So you can see we're about average on Oroville. Looking at things on conventional treatment-wise, our current flow is 10 million gallons a day. We did have a plant shutdown, so our 7-day average was 0 during that particular week that we were shut down. Roseman treatment plants right about 2.5 million gallons a day. East side at 0.08, and you can see the Acton is about 1/10 to 0.24 million gallons a day. So a total of 122 million gallons of total rated flow capacity from all of our treatment facilities. We're looking at 13.6 million gallons a day. We're barely at idle. through that program. This is why we do most of our maintenance work during this period of time. You can see the, as far as the water bank recovery facilities, you can see the west side water bank, the east side is off, and the west side water bank total was 2.7 million gallons a day. Part of this is because we were doing some maintenance work associated with the north feeder. But we do have 2.7 million gallons going to LA County Water Works, and so that's the total volume that we have at the present time. The Advanced Ranch is off. So if you're looking at water banking, and you can see that right now we're doing about 49 acre feet a day. Last 7-day average was 30 acre feet a day. And that'll be ramped up as we complete some of our maintenance activities.
I have a question on that.
Sure.
Where we just got done participating in an $18 million banking recharge facility. Where are we putting more water in that bank? Don't we get to use that?
Upper Emergosa?
Yeah, Reverend Wilson.
Yes, we're working on being able to work through we're working with the city of Palmdale in order to be able to utilize that facility, yes.
Wait, I don't know, wait, I'm confused here. I didn't know we had to have permission to put our water in that bank.
Well, somebody has to operate the facilities and put the water in and maintain the water levels and all of that. That's the responsibility for the contract that we have today with the city of Palmdale. And we operate the turnout, they operate the actual, for the contract, they operate the actual valves to put the water in the various ponds.
Okay, so we have water available,
Mhm.
we're willing to put it in,
Mhm.
and they haven't figured out who's gonna operate it?
What experience does Palmdale have with water banking?
Yeah, I mean, what,
They have very limited experience with water banking.
I didn't know this was going, I would have supported this thing if we didn't have more input on this.
Well, that's what we're working with City of Palmdale on to be able to accomplish.
I think you should sit down with the president, and you should sit down with the mayor and get them moving, because we're in the water business. We know now to put it in is the cheapest and least expensive way of doing it, and it's available. If we wait to go through the staff members, it'll never get done.
Okay. Be happy to do that.
I can't believe that. I mean, those things are empty. We spent all this time and money on that thing. That thing should be flowing right now. Everybody's been begging for recharge in that thing for how many years? 20 years.
Hope that they would have taken all this time to educate themselves on what they needed to do.
It's unbelievable. But they sure had enough money to go put a tent up there. I was there with refreshments, and John was with me. So I'm saying, we need to get good water there.
Thank you. We'll follow up. So here's the this graph here is intended to show you the recharge activities that the agency has performed and where we are with our total amount of recharge that we have. You can see that the blue bars that are associated with water that was placed in, table A water that was placed in the groundwater basin from Avek. The tan bars here are the amount of water that has been removed as associated with those minimum water supply amounts. So if you look at this graph here, this graph shows you what the total volume is. And you can see over the last couple of years, we've done a very nice job of being able to get, I'm looking, it's hard to see there, bigger numbers, but anyway, we're up here in the 110,000 acre feet total. We do have some exchange agreements with Metropolitan and Santa Clarita. And so the little over 81,000 is available to Avek. We have 110,000 in the groundwater basin itself that we have. This corresponds to the 10% reduction, so we've actually put in more than that, but this is the amount of water that's available. So we'll provide that graph, and we'll continue this on as we go in the next few years to maintain and track the amount of water that we have available in the system. Okay, here's from a water quality point of view, here's our internal level that we will try to maintain at 64 parts per billion. This is the requirement for the state requirement. I think it's 80. Yeah, it's 80 parts per billion. And these are the sample results that you have from the various sampling locations along the way. So you can see that we're consistently meeting our goal over the course of the last several years. So we have a nice trend moving forward. Currently, the turbidity, bromide, and tonal and TOC are currently low, and so that really helps with our THM amounts. Operation maintenance updates. Calgon has finished the immediate change out to the filters 1 through 12 at Quartz Hill. Job is now complete. Quartz Hill plant shut down last week for annual maintenance, is now back online. The North feeder maintenance shutdown is scheduled for 2/10 through the 14th. And for maintenance work on the North feeder and at the Mojave treatment plant, our tank farm. Our tow vehicle is expected on the 22nd of January, and operations currently are developing their 2021 capital budget and filling the maintenance positions that have become vacant. We have High Desert Water Bank design consultant interview scheduled for the 21st of January. With regards to the SNP Phase 2 updates, the final feasibility study was submitted to the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation. Edwards Air Force Base requested SNP support letter from Representative Kevin McCarthy. We're working on our own letter to provide for him, and then the NEPA work continues to complete our complete application. State legislature is back in session. On the 3rd of January, they released, the governor's office released the draft water resiliency profile. What it does is developed with the California Natural Resources Agency, and it outlines more than 100 integrated recommended actions in 4 broad areas, which include maintain and diversify the water supply, to protect and enhance the ecosystem, to build connections through infrastructure, and prepare for new threats due to climate change. We're anticipating providing you an overview of that at the next board meeting. Not to be outdone, the governor on the 10th of January released his budget proposal. It has close to $22 billion in expenditures, $153.1 billion from the general fund. We have about a 2.2 increase in spending over last year's budget. And they're trying to respond to the slowing economy, build their rainy day fund by $18 billion. And the key areas of focus include education, housing, homelessness, and climate resiliency. The climate resiliency bond, which is a proposed bond to be provided, would provide, as for the November 2020 ballot, would provide $4.75 billion in funds across 5 areas. That would include drinking water, flood and drought, wildfire, sea level rise, extreme heat, and community resilience. So he's anticipating or requesting a $4.75 billion bond to finance those measures.
Wait. Is he calling himself Moses now? What's he gonna do with the sea levels? Is he gonna do something with the ground?
He's going to provide funding to address mitigations for the increase in the sea level.
Oh, extreme heat too.
Extreme.
What about the sun? Yeah. I think he wants to nail us for $3 million a year on all this money, he could build 50 tunnels.
The Wednesday on the 22nd of January is the Water Master Board meeting. The CP Energy Summit in Napa is February 6th and 7th. Urban Water Institute Spring Conference is the 19th and 21st. My schedule is I plan to be in the Sacramento for State Water Committee meetings both Wednesday and Thursday. I'll be back on Friday. Happy to answer any questions.
When was the advisory water meeting?
Now, would you have a
Yeah, that is scheduled for Tuesday the 21st at 10:30 a.m. at Corso Water District. Yeah, there's not too much on that agenda, kind of just some routine items. If you recall, one of the reasons is because there is an upcoming decision on the storage agreement for RCSD, but it does not look like that will take place at the next Water Master meeting. So we'll have time to discuss that prior to making a decision on that storage agreement.
Okay, so that's it. Thank you very much for your presentation. Item number 11, Director's Reports. Do you have anybody like to make a report? Thank you.
No.
Item 12, Attorney's Report.
Nothing to report, Madam President.
Item 13, Request for Future Agenda Items. Do you have any? Item 14, Closed Session. Do we have a need to go into closed session?
Yes, we do. We have items B and C.
Great. Do I have a motion to go into closed session?
I'll make a motion, we go into closed session for items 14, B, and C.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes, and we go into closed session in 5 minutes.